The central station should be coming any moment to you. Bullet 16.
You can meet 170 different nationalities.
This area's rich history adds a sparkle that's never far below the surface. During the 17th century, Amsterdam shone especially bright, like gold. This golden age was an extraordinary time. Politics, art, and business all reached new levels of sophistication. Dutch shipbuilders revolutionized sailing. Amsterdam boasted a thriving stock exchange, and painters like Rembrandt and Vermeer produced remarkable art.
Weer dan eindmiddag. A bike is mostly faster than by car and short cheaper. The only thing I advise you is to buy 3 locks.
And a heart-stopping ride. A series of prison cells tucked away in the basement of the building.
Deltawerke has added dams, movable barriers, and sluices that protect the Dutch polder from storms and rising sea levels, but minimize damage to shipping and the environment. Engineers have called the Deltawerke one of the 7 modern wonders of the world. Packed with fresh organic vegetables, meat, and other good things to eat. On Mondays, it converts to a flea market with antiques, art, clothes, and many other treasures waiting to be discovered.
The market is held in the square outside Northernburg. This octagonally shaped church was built in the 1620s.
Both churches were designed by Dutch architect
An industrial working class, known for its outspoken inhabitants, romantic flavor, and community spirit. Today, it's become one of Amsterdam's most popular residential districts. Crafts and trade people still live here, along with students and artists, and most recently, an influx of well-to-do
To World War II. In 1940, Nazi forces invaded the Netherlands, and within days, the country. Anne's story is both inspiring and heartbreaking. For 2 long years, she and her companions lived in a cramped series of rooms with a hinged bookcase hiding the entrance, while courageous friends risked their lives to bring them food. The hideaways were in constant fear of being discovered and had to be extremely quiet during the day, lest the factory workers below hear them cough or flush the toilet. This was especially hard for Anne, who had earned the reputation of being a chatterbox in school.
but she could listen to sounds from the street and to the chimes of the vestibule next door. This 17th century Renaissance-style church was designed by Henrik de Keyser for Amsterdam's wealthy Protestant citizens. Its spire is the highest in Amsterdam.
The house is here on the left side, on the right of the Lunch Cafe, dark green doors, purple curtains, and the white flag of camera here on the left side. There's the house, then we have the museum, and then we get the rest of the church.
Tragically, the war was nearly over when the secret annex was finally discovered. Anne and her family were sent to concentration camps, and she died of typhus just 3 weeks before her camp was liberated by British troops.
While in hiding, Anne kept a diary. She was very candid about life in the annex and about her deepest feelings. This now famous diary has been translated into more than 60 languages. Anne wrote, "In spite of everything, I still believe that people are really good at heart." Her story reminds us of the dangers of racism and intolerance, and has come to represent many thousands of nameless war victims. The Anne Frank Museum is located right next to the house where she hid, and draws more than 1 million visitors each year. And a pulley. Goods were generally stored up high to keep them dry during the city's frequent floods. There's a strong tradition of moving things this way, as even newly constructed houses have narrow stairways and are still equipped with hoisting beams.
Until the 18th century, house numbers didn't exist in Amsterdam. Instead, people relied on gable stones. These carved and sometimes colorfully painted stones were set into a house's facade, often above the door. Pictures made reference to the occupant's religion, profession, or their family crest. For example, a butcher might have a picture of a lamb, a dentist might have a tooth, a miller a windmill. Illiteracy was high, but such symbols were easy to understand.
As we ride along the canals, keep an eye out for gable stones. There are more than 650 throughout the city. As you find them, you can challenge yourself by guessing what they might mean.
You may have noticed that most of the city's houses are made of brick. That's because bricks could be made locally. They were very porous compared to bricks of today, and had to be oiled, tarred, or painted. All older buildings were still made of wood, and Amsterdam experienced one of its biggest fires along the Keizersgracht during the 18th century. Today, the risk of fire persists. Even though reinforced concrete is used for new construction, many of the older houses still have their original wooden skeletons. Can you spot any warehouses along this canal? Look for their telltale wooden window shutters and triangular spout gables. Until about a century ago, these warehouses were filled with dry goods and other supplies. But today, the most likely thing you'll find inside is people.
After
After industries moved out of this area, the warehouses sat vacant until squatters discovered the empty buildings in the 1960s and 70s and put them to use. But this didn't last for long. Seeing potential in the warehouses, which are located right next to the water, in a historically significant part of the city, developers pushed the squatters out. The warehouses have now been renovated and made into luxury apartments. Today, they are considered to be very attractive, fashionable, and expensive places to live.
the most lavish section of all. Imagine going into one of these sumptuous homes. On the first floor, an elegant entrance hall with marble floors, high ceilings, and chandeliers. Mirrors were strategically positioned to create an illusion of even more space. And single-lot houses would often have a fake door on the side of the entryway to make them appear bigger than they were.
Rooms were richly decorated with painted wallpaper, oil paintings, fine sculptures, and exotics such as Turkish rugs and Persian silks. In the second half of the 17th century, Parisian furniture, Louis XVI style, was very much in vogue.
As a gentleman, you might join your host in a deep-colored smoking room. A lady, your hostess would receive you in a light blue salon or tea room. Here, you'd sip imported tea from China while looking out over a beautifully manicured garden. No one ever sat in the gardens. It had groomed their fashionable white skin. Two wonderful museums in the area, the Hilving-Lopenhaus and the Willet Holthausen.
From politics and the economy to arts and science, everything flourished. And the city was now the most important trade center in Europe. There are many reasons for Amsterdam's astounding success. It had the largest and most progressive shipbuilding industry in Europe. Dutch traders sailed farther than anyone else to newly discovered lands in the Far East and to North and South America. They organized into companies like the Dutch East Indian Company and the Dutch West Indian Company. And the profits from trading staples like grain and exotics such as spices, porcelain, precious stones, and textiles were enormous.
Get your camera ready. We're about to pass by one of the most photographed views in Amsterdam. The 7 arched bridges over Reguliersgracht, or Canal. This beautiful and unique view of all 7 bridges at once can only be seen from here on waters of the Herengracht. Our kind captain will be slowing down to give everyone a chance to catch a photo of this unique sight.
The wealthiest citizens, shipbuilders, merchants, investors, and politicians built elegant mansions on the Herengracht.
We have a replica that's called, it's the same to be seen in the River Seine and Alexander. The people out of France or Belgium. Yes, after the bridge, skinny bridge, on the right, on the left, the blue bridge.
The Magere Brug, otherwise referred to as the famous Skinny Bridge, stretches all the way across the Amstel River. Of Amsterdam's 1,500 or so bridges, this is the most famous. It dates back to the 17th century and was likely a narrow footbridge. Since then, it's been reconstructed more than once and grown wider with age. Legend has it that whoever you kiss while passing under the bridge began building homes in this area. Notice its unique feel, with more greenery and wider lanes than anywhere else in the city.
Including the tulip, the potato, and tobacco, all of which are now considered common. The Botanical Gardens collection has grown to contain thousands of specimens, from the common to the very rare. Nearby, you'll find Wertheim Park, one of Amsterdam's oldest public parks. This picturesque green area is home to the Auschwitz Memorial, a series of broken mirrors. They're positioned to reflect the expansive sky above, symbolizing the broken heaven above Auschwitz. The 17th century brought a second wave of Jewish immigrants. This time they came from Central and Eastern Europe, and most were very poor. They were attracted by good work prospects and the freedom to practice their religion. Before long, Amsterdam had the largest Jewish population in Europe.
Unfortunately, World War II changed that. As the war approached, 80,000 Jews lived in Amsterdam. By the time the war was ended, there were only 5,000 left. Still, their early influence has been strong. The city has been enriched by Jewish culture and the knowledge and skills they brought. For example, as traders, diamond cutters, and tobacco processors.
Although Jews were free to practice their religion, they were excluded from the Christian-based guild system. Guilds were associations made up of craftsmen or merchants that shared the same profession. These associations set up trade monopolies, quality standards, prices, and they often had some political power. Guild members also worshiped together. Some Jews were able to two docks in front of the building for constructing and arming warships of the Dutch Republic with cannons and other weapons. A replica of a trade ship called the Amsterdam is now docked outside the museum, giving insight into just how small and cramped sailing conditions were.
The building was renovated and reopened in 2011. A beautiful domed glassy lines like those on an old map. After dark, hundreds of tiny LED lights blink on, creating the illusion of a starry night.
The museum is well worth a visit and contains shipping and sailing artifacts and collections of maps, weapons, model ships, as well as paintings of naval officers and dramatic sea battles. Cruise ships from all over the world dock at the PTA, or Passenger Terminal Amsterdam. It's shaped like a wave, or the back of a whale. Some locals like to call it the goldfish, because the tourists brought here by the big cruise ships help to bolster the economy. Amsterdam, or East Harbor. It was constructed at the beginning of interactive exhibits. It's a popular place for families. As much as it looks like a ship, that wasn't the original intention. The famous Italian art tunnel, which runs beneath it. The building's height equals the depth of the tunnel. Nemo gets its green color from the oxidated copper that covers its walls. There's a unique sand-filled terrace on the roof, where you'll find sunbathers searching for rays while enjoying beautiful views of the harbor and the city. His wife, and 4 figures that represent the points of the compass. The building is decorated inside and out with all kinds of nautical symbols, anchors, ships, and famous Dutch mariners. It's now a 5-star luxury hotel. Hidden away in secular buildings. One of these, the Ons Lieve Heer op Zolder, or Our Lord in the Attic, is now another museum you can visit while in Amsterdam. In the late 18th century, French rulers restored Catholic rights to worship openly, and this church was built shortly after.
Let's move further back to the 17th century, when Amsterdam was one of the wealthiest and most powerful cities in Europe. At that time, the round Schreier's Tower that sits in front of St. Nicholas Church had already been standing at the city's edge for 200 years. Many, many ships set sail from here, including the Dutch East India Company's first expedition. At the beginning of the Golden Age, the English explorer Henry Hudson also set sail from the Schreier's Tower. He was in search of a new trade route to the East Indies on behalf of the Dutch East Indian Company. Instead, he found North America and the river that now bears his name. The tower has a plaque commemorating his journey.
Now on the left here, in was it 1609? That's a long time ago. It's maybe also a pity to say that we're nearly ending our tour. Thank you for visiting us. Merci de votre visiter. Voor jullie bezoek. For the people who are searching for coffee here you can drink coffee here in this Lucia.
Coming full circle, we're now approaching Damwar, the original mouth of the Amstel, and nearing the end of our cruise. It's here where the Amstel once met the egg that a few peasants with dreams of building a future spawned this great city. Clearly, their ingenuity and hard work have paid off. That first dam across the river started a series of events that's led to the incredibly unique and picturesque Amsterdam we're able to enjoy today.